everyone, Scott Hansen here from NFL Red Zone. I hope you're checking out 1 hour of 5 Yard Rush, one of the best podcasts on NFL football in the UK.
Hey everybody, it's Wednesday. It is time for the matchup show. That's right. It is time to look ahead to this week's fixtures and fantasy relevant players. And these rankings are up to date as of about 3 o'clock this afternoon. So if there is some news that's happened, there's one piece of news. I haven't actually updated the rankings with regards to Kenneth Gainwell probably not playing this week. So as a result of that, he's still in my ranks, but I need to adjust my ranks. So when we talk about them, I'll mention them. But if you're looking at my ranks now, hopefully by the time you're watching this or seeing it, it should hopefully be updated not too long after that. But yeah, just thought I'd put that precursor out there that any news that has happened, such as the Kenneth Gainwell news, might not be reflective of my ranks if you're, depending on when you're looking at this. They'll be updated again sort of just after this podcast is aired. So about 7 o'clock tonight will be the next update. So just be wary on that. But yeah, shouldn't be too much, hopefully, that's out of sync. But yeah, the Kenneth Gainwell one is slightly, if you're looking at this right this second. Yes, so matchup show week 2. Thanks for the feedback last week. A lot of people find this podcast very useful just to hear my ranks. A lot of people say, where can you find my ranks? I did put a link into the show notes, so was a little surprised to see that, but they're all here on 5yardrush.co.uk. So you just go into the tab here for Murf's rankings, weekly football rankings, and then here you can select. You've got my IDP rankings are in here as well. They use the Fantasy Pro scoring, so they're not going to be accurate to BFFL. I know a lot of people ask me about that. They're not going to be accurate to BFFL, but there's a good guide at least for that. You can change the scoring to half point, full point, and standard for offensive scoring. And you can see it's all in here. So, you can just go in here, have a look where I've got players. 2 columns here is the ECR, which is the expert consensus ranking from Fantasy Pros. I use the Fantasy Pros widget. I submit my rankings to Fantasy Pros every week. They give me this really cool widget, which is great. It's easy to use, and you can click on these players to get latest information. And then you got the versus ECR, so where I am over consensus. So, for example, if I scroll down to Jamar Gibbs, significantly lower than consensus on Jamar Gibbs. Same way that I'm slightly higher than consensus on Tyler Algier and Gus Edwards. And I'll talk a little bit about that as we go through. But yes, my rankings are on here. So 5yardrush.co.uk /weekly -fantasy -football -rankings. It's a lot to remember. There is a link in the show notes. If, however, you're watching along and it's on the YouTube, easiest way to do this, just literally 5yardrush.co.uk, go to Murf's rankings, weekly fantasy football rankings. It is all there. Do have a look and check them out. Right, getting into the matchup show. Going to be going through the 16 games, fantasy players, etc. I'm trying to pick up every fantasy relevant player. Yes, I did not see the amazing game from Paku Nakua coming. I've subsequently edited my ranks this week to ensure that he is slightly more reflective than perhaps where he was last week. Sorry, please excuse me. And I'm looking forward to digging into this and to going through my process on all these players. So let me just pull up Sleeper like we did last week. So we can go through every game and talk through sort of every game as we go through. And you can see it on the screen, hopefully now. So let's talk about Thursday Night Football. We just talked about Kenneth Gainwell. Minnesota at Philadelphia. So it's going to be an exciting game. Minnesota losing to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Bit of a shock on Sunday. Philadelphia Eagles dispatching the New England Patriots in week 1. And here we've got the 2 quarterbacks here, Cousins and Hurts. And for this game, I would say that Jalen Hurts is definitely fantasy startable. I don't think that the Vikings defense is going to be quite as bad as they were. The consensus actually has Hurts as the QB1 this week. I'm a little bit more conservative. I actually have him at QB4 this week, but if you've drafted Hurts, you're definitely going to be starting him. I have Cousins all the way down at QB18. That is lower than consensus. I just think that, yes, he has got Addison, he has got Jefferson. They will be chasing the game that, and I do think that there will be this sort of negative game script. That will mean they'll put the ball in the air, but I just see the turnovers coming. And so that's something to be slightly cautious about there with Kirk Cousins. When we sit here and look at the running backs in this game, I have Alexander Mattison sitting there just outside the top 24. I actually have him at RB 25 as it stands right now. Just don't think this is a game that, again, they're going to run the ball an absolute ton. He wasn't impressive last week, that's for sure. And they had positive game script in there. So with the news of Gainwell out, I have moved DeAndre Swift up, but he is still only my RB 29 on the week. So yeah, a lot of work. I just think it's going to get shared around a bit. I think you're going to see Rashard Penny probably come back into this a little bit more. He's moved up subsequently to my RB 50 on the week. So there is some work there to be done. But really, other than Swift, I'm not really touching this backfield too much this week. Yeah, you see Gainwell was the person here that looked like he was going to get the most work, but I don't think this is a game where you're going to see these running backs absolutely dominate. Moving on to the wide receivers here. Internet can be a little slow here. I'm so sorry. I did have the engineer out. I'm hoping it's going to be slightly better moving forward. I have AJ Brown at wide receiver 7. I have Devonta Smith at wide receiver 10. I have Justin Jefferson at wide receiver 1. So 3 of my top 10 wide receivers are playing on Thursday Night Football this week. And then Jordan Addison is sitting there at wide receiver 32. They're the 4 you're going to want to start in this game. There isn't anyone else you're particularly going to touch in this game. The 2 tight ends as well. I do expect it to be quite an offensive game. So I have here TJ Hawkinson at tight end 4, and I have Dallas Goedert at tight end 7. You can definitely start the Philly DST in this one, although I'm, again, lower than consensus on them. I do have them at defense 12 this week. At DST 12, much, much lower on the Minnesota Vikings. Definitely not a D I'm going to be starting this week. But you can start the Philly D for sure. And then as for the kickers, Jake Elliott, I've got at kicker 10. And I have Greg Joseph at kicker 21. So not a kicker I'm targeting this week. So a lot of very actionable fantasy football players. Bit wary on the running backs here. So, if you have got other options, I think you're probably going to have to start Mattison. If you have other options, make sure you check them out. Moving on to the 6 o'clock games or 1 o'clock games in the US. And let's talk about Green Bay, very impressive with Jordan Love versus the Atlanta Falcons. Just waiting on things to load. So, yeah, it should be an interesting game. Not a game that in one QB lineups you're going to be starting either QB, but I am higher than Jordan Love. As I keep saying, I'm probably always a bit higher than consensus on Jordan Love. He's nearing the QB1 conversation for me. He's actually at QB 13. So in that range, he is startable for me. But preferably you've got him with a better QB, and therefore you're more likely to start him. But I do think he's a startable option this week against Atlanta. Desmond Ridder is not. They do not throw the ball anywhere near enough to warrant going for Desmond Ridder here. Moving on to the running backs in this game. Bijan Robinson, I've got at RB6, very impressive debut. Aaron Jones, he did leave the game. Got to watch the injury status. I think he's going to go. I've got him at RB11 right now, so should be fine to go here. And I've got Tyler Algier RB24. So I actually have him above Mattison. I have AJ Dillon at 32. So actually all of these running backs, these 4 running backs in this game are all startable for me. AJ Dillon in the flex, if you're a bit short with injury, I think will be a worthy flex, especially if they're going to be a little cautious here on Jones. I don't think they're going to be too cautious, but one to keep an eye on for sure. And then we look at the wide receivers in this game, and this is where there is a bit of a letdown. I've got Jake London at 34. I'm still a bit of a truther here, but no catches last week. You're going to need to pick that one up a little bit. I have Romeo Dobbs at 38. I'm not sure on Christian Watson's health. I have got him at 55. Wide receiver 55 on the week, but I'm just a bit unsure. I've got Jaden Reed at 59. So really, I'm not overly itching to start too many receivers in this game. Maybe London, maybe Dobbs, but I'm not starting anyone else really in this game. Unless Watson gets a full clean beer of health, then I probably will revise my rankings and have a look. But at the moment, I'm just not too confident here that he's going to be. Then looking at the tight end options in this game, Kyle Pitts I have at tight end 8, so definitely an option for you, but we're going to need to see a bit more out of the offense here. Luke Musgrave, I have a 20, so not a player that you'd be looking to overly start this week. I do like the Packers DST this week. I think I like them slightly more than most. Just outside my top 12, I have them at 15, but if you took them as one of your Ds to carry for the season, I think you can definitely start them. Wouldn't shock me if they finished a little bit higher than that. Atlanta Falcons, I have a 22. And Young Hoku, definite must-start kicker this week. You can start him. I've got him sort of in the kicker 5 position. I've got him this week. I have Anders Carlson at kicker 18. So not one I'm overly eager to push forward to starting, but I don't think many people will be this week for sure. Moving on to Vegas versus Buffalo. Who would have thought coming into this game that Vegas would be 1-0 and Buffalo would be 0-1? Josh Allen's my QB1 on this week. I know he threw 3 picks last week. I fully expect him to bounce back. He is my QB1 on the week. Jimmy Garoppolo, not a player I will be starting in most formats this week unless absolutely desperate. I'm not saying he was particularly bad last week, just the way that this offense is structured. I have as the running backs here, Josh Jacobs as the running back 9, James Cook as the running back 14. These are the 2 options for you this week, and both of them are must starts in this game. Moving on to the wide receivers, and again, I seem to be slightly over the consensus on Devontae Adams. Stephon Diggs is the leading wide receiver in this game. He is wide receiver 6 for me. Devontae Adams is wide receiver 8. And then Jacoby Myers, again, got to watch it. He could be in the concussion protocol. He might not go. If he does go, he's my wide receiver 35. Gabe Davis, my wide receiver 37. So they're the 4 wide receivers that are all in starting range this week. But you have to just wait and see on the status of Jacoby Myers to see if he's going to be a go. And when we get to the tight ends, there isn't a tight end here in this game I'd be overly looking to start well outside. I have Dalton Kincaid at 18. I don't think he's the best play this week. I am lower than consensus on him. I will put that health warning out there. However, it's not a play I'm looking to make this week. I have the Buffalo Bills as my DST 6, and Tyler Bass is in my top 3 kickers this week. So feel free to start them. I'm a little lower than Carlson. On Carlson, I have him down at 14 on the week. I am a little bit lower than consensus on him, but you can push to start him if you're absolutely needing one at the kicker position. Looking to Baltimore, Cincinnati, and Cincinnati looking to bounce back from what was nothing short than a horrific week 1 with just putting up 3 points. Burrow getting benched because the game was a lost cause. Baltimore looked good, not great. I think I would expect them to get better as they go along. Both these QBs are must starts to me. Lamar Jackson, my QB5 on the week. Joe Burrow is my QB7 on the week. Expect both of these QBs to have much better weeks than they did in week 1. Running backs in this game, it's an interesting one with the season-long injury to J.K. Dobbins. Unfortunately, looks like we're going to lose him probably for a long time from the NFL. So it's an interesting way they're going to break it down. Joe Mixon is my running back 10. this week. I have Gus Edwards at running back 27. I have Justice Hill at running back 35. Justice Hill on Sleeper seemed to be the more popular ad. I think that was the 2 touchdowns. Gus Edwards' usage was a little bit more predictable and more likely that he was going to be the lead back here. I think they share the work, which is why I've got them at 27-35. If I had to start one and own both, I'd be starting Edwards. I think you can start Justice Hill in the flex if you're short a few injuries. I think he's going to be the goal line back. I think Edwards will get the majority of the work. So, I think both of them are start options, but yeah, there are better out there potentially to start instead of them. Looking at the wide receivers in this matchup, and I have 2 of the Cincinnati receivers inside the top 15, I believe, this week. Jamar Chase is my wide receiver 3 on the week. I'm just waiting for it to load, but I believe he's my wide receiver 3 on the week. And I have Higgins towards wide receiver 15, maybe even wide receiver 16 this week. I have Chase at 4, sorry. I have Jamar Chase at 4. I have Higgins at 16. Zay Flowers is at wide receiver 28. He seems to be emerging from the pack. I have Odell Beckham Jr. at 47. I have Rashad Bateman at 56 and Tyler Boyd at 57. So those in deep leagues as flex options. But again, you're really leaning towards the top 3 receivers here, which is Flowers, Higgins, and Chase. Mark Andrews, we're waiting to see if he's going to be a go. I would expect him to be a go. I think he just wasn't risked last week. So he's my tight end 2 on the week. I wouldn't be starting Irv Smith Jr. And I think the defenses in this game are going to be hit a little bit. Not overly keen to start too many. I have the Ravens at 13. I think they've got the capability of getting some turnovers here. Cincinnati's not a defense I'd be looking to start this week. They are significantly lower in the rankings than that. And then moving on to kickers, Justin Tucker is my kicker 1. Evan McPherson, my kicker 7 on the week. Moving on to Seattle versus Detroit. Good to see Detroit win on Thursday Night Football. Really good to see them progressing as a team and starting to be competitive again. When it comes to the QBs in this game, neither of them are in the Geno Smith's not quite in the start conversation for me. He's QB 16. Jared Goff is my QB 9 this week, which might be seeming a little punchy, but I just think the way that he played, and then on top of that, the way that he moves this offense through the chains, I think he's a decent top 12 option against that Seattle defense this week. Moving on to the running backs, I've already said I'm slightly low on Jamar Chase, and that is because I think David Montgomery is going to get a lot of that sort of up north-south work, and that does mean I have David Montgomery higher. I have him at 15. Highest running back in this game, Kenneth Walker, I have at 12 on the week. And then I have Jamar Gibbs at running back 28. I am lower than consensus on him, so there is a health warning there quite significantly. And then Zach Charbonnet, I have at RB41. I wouldn't be starting Charbonnet unless you're absolutely needing someone there. And I think if you are, then you are going to struggle a little bit this week. I started him last week, and his 1.10 fantasy points did not do me any favors at all. Moving on to the wide receivers in this game, Amon-Ra St. Brown is my wide receiver 3. DK Metcalf, my wide receiver 13. Tyler Lockett did leave the field, but I do think he's going to be okay. He's my wide receiver 19 this week, but do keep an eye on that one. I have JSN at wide receiver 49. I'm not starting JSN unless absolutely needed this week. And then moving on to the tight ends, I am lower than consensus on Sam Laporta. I have him well outside the tight end 1 conversation. I have him at tight end 17, and I'm not starting Noah Fant either. So I'm leaving the tight ends in this game. I'm leaving the defenses in this game as well. I think it's going to be high scoring, at least from the Lions perspective, and from the Seattle perspective. Maybe not, but just whether or not Detroit are going to force that many turnovers. They're not the best defense in the world. I have them at DST 24 as a result of that. As for the kickers in this game, you can start them both. They're going to be at the low end of the kicker 1 conversation. Riley Patterson is at 12. Jason Myers is at kicker 9 for the week. Moving on to the Colts versus Houston. This is not a game I think many people are going to be tuned into on Game Pass. This will be one for the purists, but there is some fantasy players relevant in this game, although not absolutely tons. Anthony Richardson, he did leave the field towards the end of the game on Sunday. I do have him at quarterback 10 as a result. I do think he's going to go this week. CJ Stroud won't be up for consideration this week. The running backs in this game are probably where you're going to see some purchase. We're waiting to see what happens with Zach Moss. I think Zach Moss is potentially going to be ready to go, but just stay tuned. Keep an eye on that injury health list. It is only Wednesday, so just do keep an eye on that. Damian Pierce is the leading back in this game. He's the RB16. I have Moss over Jackson. Moss at running back 43, Jackson running back 48. I will move Moss up in my rankings a little bit. When I say a little bit, he will still be outside the top 30. I think they share the work. I think they cannibalize the work. But Zach Moss is the player I would want over Deion Jackson, who did not necessarily thrill in the absence of Jonathan Taylor and Zach Moss last week. So I think Zach Moss is going to get the majority of the work, but it will be cannibalized a little bit by Jackson. As for the wide receiver in this game, Michael Pittman is, and I'm over consensus on him, is wide receiver 23, and Robert Woods is my wide receiver 40. Again, massively over consensus on him. I have Nico Collins down at wide receiver 48. Both of those are considered flex plays. I'm not touching any other wide receiver in this game. I'm not touching the tight ends in this game. I'm not touching the kickers in this game. I will say that I think the Colts are a sneaky play this week. They looked very good on defense last week. I do think that they can make some turnovers. They're at the bottom end of the DST1 conversation for me, and I've got them ranked at 12 as it currently stands. Moving on to an absolute barn burner. That will be Kansas City versus Jacksonville. I think this is going to be a really exciting game. I'm really looking forward to seeing it. I'm going to watch this on Monday, and I'll explain why in just a minute when I talk about the next game. So I'll be watching this on Game Pass on Monday. It'll be probably my first viewing unless a game with more storylines catches my eye. So both these quarterbacks are my top 6 this week. Patrick Mahomes is my QB2. And Trevor Lawrence is my QB6 on the week. So both of these must-start QBs. And then we talk about the running backs in this game. Again, both of these should be both of these running backs. Travis Etienne in my top 10. He's at 7 on the week. Isaiah Pacheco is at 33. So in that conversation to start, not necessarily reaching to start him. Jarrett McKinnon in a PPR league, I'm probably more inclined to start. Tank Bigsby I have at 44. I'm not starting him unless I absolutely need to, and if I do, I've got bigger problems. Moving on to the wide receiver in this game, and I really liked what I saw out of Calvin Ridley. He's a must-start for me. He is coming into this game as my wide receiver 5 on the week, and the one wide receiver in this game I really would like to start. I have Zay Jones at wide receiver 41 after his stellar performance last week. I have Christian Kirk at wide receiver 44. He didn't really get much of a look in. Sky Moore is at 50. Kadarius Toney at 54, Rashee Rice at 66, and Marcus Valdes-Scantling at 69. Still not really sure what to do. I think they're all going to cannibalize each other until a real leader comes out of the pack, and they haven't so far. Maybe in this game, we might see one of those wide receivers come out of the pack, but I'm being extremely cautious on my rankings on them right now. Moving on to the tight ends, and Travis Kelce, I expect to be back this week. After that hyperextension, he is my tight end 1. Evan Ingram is my tight end 5 on the week. Expect both of these to be good. Not starting any of these DSTs this week, but you can definitely start both the kickers this week. They're both of them going to be well within the top 12 conversation. Moving on to Chicago at Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay have their home game after a brilliant win last week. And so me and quite a few others, including Dan, who hosts the Dynasty podcast, are going to be watching the Buccaneers in Belushi's on Sunday night. So that's why I won't be watching many of the games. I would just be watching the Buccaneers exclusively with a lot of friends. There's about 15 of us. I'm looking forward to that one. This, I think, is a good matchup for the Buccaneers defense. I think the Bears are potentially going to struggle, which is why I'm lower on consensus on Justin Fields. I have him all the way down at 11. I don't think this is a good matchup for him. I think that they'll contain the run quite significantly, as they did last week against Minnesota, as they've continued to over the last couple of years. So I'm a little bit low on Fields. He is my quarterback 11 on the week. I'm not starting Baker Mayfield, even though he was better than expected last week. Running backs in this game, again, not ones I'm overly eager to start. Rashad White is RB20. To be honest, I can see me moving him down as the week progresses, but I do think it's a good game script for the Buccaneers, and I do expect them to win the game, and therefore I have got White there. But don't be too surprised if on Sunday he slips outside that running back 2 conversation in my rankings. Well, he'll out of the top 24, but he'll still be in the conversation. As for Chicago, Roschon Johnson is my leading running back. He's at running back 42. I'm just not eager to start any of these running backs against the Buccaneers. They contain the run extremely well. They held Alexander Mattison to 41 yards rushing the entire Minnesota offense to 41 yards rushing last week. So, not overly keen to start any of the running backs in this game. And then it comes to the wide receivers, and I am slightly lower than consensus on DJ Moore. I've got him at 27 on the week, and I've got both Godwin and Evans over them at 20 and 25 respectively. So they all are possible starts, but they are going to be lower than expected. Except for Godwin, I've got him about where the expectation is for him. Darnell Mooney is my wide receiver 58, not in a hurry to start him this week. Chase Claypool was absolutely abysmal and should be dropped in all leagues because I don't think he's going to be on the Bears too much longer after that awful performance in week 1. Personally, and I wrote a tweet in the week that there's a player nicking a living on that roster, and I think for me it is Chase Claypool. Go back and watch some of the film because it's been abysmal. Cole Kmet, I have a tight end 15 this week. He is a start option, and the Buccaneers for me are a big start option. 3 turnovers last week. I think they're going to better that or equal it this week at least. I think you're going to see quite a few turnovers from this Bucs D this week. Moving on to the Chargers versus the Titans. Justin Herbert, I think, again, is starting to look more like the Justin Herbert we saw in his rookie year. He's my quarterback 3 this week. Feel very confident that we'll continue to see him improve under Kellen Moore this season. I've got, don't need to start Ryan Tannehill this week. I've got Derrick Henry and Austin Eckler back-to-back in this one. I literally have them at Derrick Henry at 4, Austin Eckler at 5. That isn't half-point PPR and PPR. I would move them Henry down a bit and Austin Eckler up a bit. You can see that in my rankings by changing that to PPR. Kyron Williams, by the way, I have just outside that 3 conversation. I've got him at 37 on the week. He is someone in a flex play you could look at for consideration, but want to keep an eye on for the rest of the week, and especially going forward. Moving on to wide receivers this week. Keenan Allen is my leading wide receiver in this game. I've got him at wide receiver 14. I've got DeAndre Hopkins at 21, Mike Williams at 22. So all 3 must starts for me. Traylon Burks, I've got 39, so he's a flex play for me. You can definitely put him in your flex this week and expect to see him more, especially with this sort of game script. Should be able to see more out of them. Not starting either of the tight ends this week or Donald Parham. I mean, I think the Donald Parham, I don't think he's going to continue to overtake every week. It just seemed to be a week where he got more work than expected. And I'm not starting Chick with 0 points last week. Too much of a risk for me. I have all these wide receivers outside the top, tight ends outside the top 18. So I'm very cautious here and not starting any of these tight ends this week unless it's a tight end Premium League and I sort of have them and have to. Nor am I too desperate to start the defenses in this game. I do have the Chargers at 18, and I have the Titans significantly lower than that. But I do have Cameron Dicker as my kicker 4. Nick Folk had a good week last week. I am outside the kicker 1 conversation, but I'm not against starting him. He's someone who can hit them from distance, so don't hate that one too much. Moving on to the late slate of games, and we've got the Giants versus Arizona. Both of these teams had pretty poor week 1s. Arizona probably a slightly better week 1. At least they were somewhat competitive with Washington, but the Giants really stunk the place out and were pretty awful. I have Daniel Jones at 14, and if anyone does care where I've got Josh Dobbs, I have him Quarterback 31. There's one QB I have him ranked higher than. You'll find that one out shortly. But again, not in too much of a hurry to start the QBs in this game. Nor am I too eager to start too many other players in this game. Saquon Barkley is my running back 2 on the week. He is one I would be looking to start. James Conner at 22. Again, I'd feel pretty all right starting him. But other than that, there's not much else going on in this game. Wide receiver wise, there's not too much I want to get involved in this game. I'm pretty much fading all the Giants wide receivers until we kind of see who comes out of the pack. The highest ranked wide receiver in this game I have is Marquise Brown at wide receiver 45, and he's the only wide receiver in this game I have inside the top 65, which tells you fade all the wide receivers in this game. Absolutely no need to play them. Instead, we can look at the tight ends. Darren Waller is someone who probably had a bit of a disappointing week last week. He is my tight end 3 on the week, though. And Zach Ertz, in a PPR league in particular, is someone I would be happy to start. I've got him at tight end 16.5 point. I can move him up a bit because he is getting a significant amount of targets. But as we saw, 6 for 21 on Sunday, not something that you're too keen to have. And then I'm not too concerned about the DSTs in this game. Graham Gano had a bit of a mare last week, is someone that I have a kicker 15. So if he is your kicker and you're stuck with him, you can start him, but I have him just outside the kicker 1 conversation. Moving on to the 49ers versus the Rams. Again, don't have any of these quarterbacks inside the QB1 conversation. In fact, I don't have any of them. I have Brock Purdy at 15. Slightly unfair. He is in the conversation. But yeah, I think he's got a very safe floor, but not exactly a very high ceiling. Christian McCaffrey is my running back 1 on the week. You can feel pretty good about that. I have Akers all the way down at running back 35. I just think he's going to be splitting some time. It didn't really look good for him. Sorry, running back 34. I've got him at. So yeah, 1, 2. I think you probably have to start him looking at the profiles you got, but just don't expect too much out of him this week. And also, he is playing the 49ers, so the game script's going to go against him. But also, that D is a pretty phenomenal unit, so one to be slightly wary of. Looking at the wide receivers in this game, I have Deebo Samuel at wide receiver 15, Brandon Ayuk at wide receiver 17, and Puka Nacua is at my wide receiver 30 on the week. He looks like he's taken over the Cooper Cup role. He's someone that definitely you want to keep an eye on in PPR leagues. A lot of people spent fab on him this week, and a significant amount as well. So 1 to start. I have him in the flex consideration, but in a PPR league, he'd probably be sneaking inside the top 24 due to that volume he's going to be getting. But is it a fluke? We're going to see. But I think he's someone that for the next few weeks could be lightning in a bottle. So we'll have to see how he gets on. George Kittle, disappointing week last week, but he is my tight end 6 for the week. And I have Tyler Higbee is my tight end 13. So just on the cusp of the tight end 1 conversation, you can start him. And you can definitely start Jake Moody at kicker. He is my kicker 5 or 6 for the week. So one that you can start this week. And I have the 49ers as my DST 3. So you can fire those up for those of you that took them in the 9th or 10th round. We're starting them anyway, so didn't really need that piece of analysis. The Aaron Rodgers-less New York Jets, who pulled off a phenomenal win on Monday Night Football without him, will play the Dallas Cowboys. Zach Wilson is my 32 and last ranked quarterback this week against that Dallas D. And coming into the fact he's going to be a little bit cold, although he did play that game on Monday Night Football, hasn't been the starter in preseason and hasn't been the one in snaps in camp. So he's going to take a bit of time to get going. I have Dak Prescott. I never thought I'd rank him this low, but I do have him as quarterback 17. Just didn't like what I saw in a game that they were dominating. You would expect him to have been slightly better. So I'm fading on for starts this week. At the running back position, I have Tony Pollard as my wide receiver 8. He was pretty awesome. And I have Breece Hall at 21. He was also awesome, but against this D and the game script, it's going to be a bit hard. Dalvin Cook is at 37. I'd be fading Dalvin Cook this week, but I can see the appeal in people wanting to play him as a flex. But I personally wouldn't. I would try and stay away from that. I don't think this is the game, even though I think the running volume will increase due to Zach Wilson under center. I do think this is a game that you don't really want to be targeting having running back success against that Dallas D, which was phenomenal against the New York Giants last week. CD Lamb is my wide receiver 12, highest ranked wide receiver in this game. Garrett Wilson I have down at 26. I wrote a piece for Pro Football Network. Have a look, find it. It's should I trade Garrett Wilson? You can Google it. You can find it on my X or Twitter, whatever it's called. Do give it a read as to why or why not you should trade Garrett Wilson. There's some interesting reasons in there, but I have him down at 26, purely down to the lack of relationship he had with Zach Wilson last year. 8.5 games, 460 odd yards, no touchdowns. Yes, they scored on Monday Night Football, and Jets fans are going to be telling me, oh, well, he scored on Jets on Monday Night Football. He did also only have 5 targets. Yes, he caught all 5, but it was for 30 odd yards. Not something I'm overly excited about moving forward. So I do have him all the way down at wide receiver 26. I have Brandon Cooks at 42. So potential flex play, but I'm not too confident on that one. I'm probably for this game swerving the tight ends. I don't think there's enough appeal in the tight ends in this one. So I'll probably be looking to stay away from them. Highest ranked tight end in this game is Jake Ferguson. He is at 21. So again, not one I'm starting. The DSTs, I have the Dallas Cowboys at 1 this week. And you could start Greg Zuerlein as a kicker. I think he's going to get some opportunities. Moving on to Washington v. Denver. Washington v. Denver. This is the last game of the late slate. I don't know how watchable this game is going to be. Be interesting to see how it goes, but I'm staying away from the QBs in this one. Don't feel you need to start them in a 1 QB league. The running back situation, again, is slightly murky unless you are the owner of Brian Robinson Jr. He, for me, is the only must-start running back in this game. I have Brian Robinson Jr. at 19 on the week. I have Javonte Williams and Samaje Perine back-to-back. Perine at 30, Williams at 31. I just think they're going to continue to sort of eat off each other, be 1A, 1B, share a lot of the workload. Maybe until Williams gets a little bit stronger and healthier. I've Antonio Gibson down at 46. Just not convinced that he's going to be overly fantasy relevant for the rest of the season. As for the wide receivers in this game, they're all a bit low. Courtland Sutton is the leading wide receiver in this game. I have him at 29. I have Terry McLaurin at 31. I have Dotson at 33. So, yeah, not overly and Jerry Judy's at 51. If I knew his injury status, he might move up a little bit. But yeah, I basically think they're okay options. Probably are starting those McLaurin, Sutton, and Dotson, but I'm not overly eager to push the button on those. I mean, you're starting them, but I'm not overly excited by them, as you can tell by my ranks. And then as for the tight ends, Greg Dulcich is out, which makes room for Adam Troutman, but he's not starting for me this week, nor is Logan Thomas. And I'm not too overly invested in the DSTs, although I do have the Commanders at 9 this week. So if you started them for their early season schedule, this is probably not a bad fixture, but you know, Sean Payton does like to spoil the party a little bit. Actually, I lie. I have the Broncos at 4. I think they can force turnovers on Sam Howell. I missed that one there. Sorry. So, yeah, I do have both of these as my DST ones. Like I said, I do think it's a low-scoring game. So, it'd be interesting to see. I do think Denver can force turnovers. I think the game will probably be won on defense. So, we'll see what happens there. But I'm not having either of the kickers start for me this week. And then we have Sunday Night Football. We have Miami versus New England. Tua was phenomenal last week. I have got him as my quarterback 8 this week. And Mac Jones was pretty good, but the game was pretty much over when he started to turn up. not a start for me. He's at 21 on the week. As for running backs in this game, Ramondre Stevenson is the one that you want to start in this game. He is currently my running back 13 on the week. He's the standout of this game. Raheem Mostert is at 26. I'm not starting any other running back in this game. And then moving on to the wide receivers, I think I have Tyreek Hill at 1 this week after his performance last week. How can I? No, I have him at 2 this week. I did have him at 1. I flipped him last minute and put Jefferson there. I have Tyreek Hill at 2. I have Jalen Waddle at 11. Both of those premium options this week. I have Kendrick Bourne as my leading New England wide receiver. He's at 46, but too risky a start for me. Juju all the way down at 53. Hunter Henry, after his tight end 1 performance last week, is someone that you could consider starting. I have him at tight end 10 on the week. And then you could definitely put Jason Sanders in as a kicker this week. He's someone that you can feel pretty comfortable in starting this week for sure. And the DSTs, Miami could be an interesting bet. I do have them inside my top 12 this week. Right then, let's finish this off. We've got 2 games on Monday night. New Orleans, Carolina, and then Cleveland, Pittsburgh, 2 divisional games. We'll start with New Orleans versus Carolina. In this one, not keen on starting the quarterbacks in this one. And also for the running backs here, none of them are what I would call must-start plays. The highest ranked running back I have in this game is... I'll tell you now. Miles Sanders, who is at running back, and Jamal Williams, who
So looks like that my mic somehow got unplugged. Looks like my mic got unplugged during a little piece of that. I don't know how much you've got. I'm going to have to play this back and see where it got to. I know it recorded at least all but the last couple of minutes. So if that's the case, I will re-record the last piece and put it out for you. But until then, Rush Nation, so sorry about that technical glitch there at the end. Appreciate you tuning in as always, and hope you found this particularly useful. Do check out my rankings. I will keep them up to date as much as possible over the week and the weekend. I was updating them up until 5 minutes before kickoff, so do keep an eye on that. It does tend to move with the reaction of news as it drops, so do keep an eye on that one. But tune in tomorrow night. Really cool show. We're going to talk about commissioners and commissioning leagues and making fantasy leagues fun, as well as also doing some recap and trend stuff for week 1, week 2. So really cool guest. He's a commissioner of one of my home leagues. I'm excited to have him on. It's going to be quite a fun show. So a lot of fun. There will be some good fantasy insight in there as well, but just some good tips about making your league fun. He's an awesome guy, great commissioner, makes our home league really, really fun. There's a really cool story in there as well. Stay tuned tomorrow night for that one. Hope you listen to the Dynasty show. Hope you picked up the Waiver Wire show. If not, even though waivers are run, still listen to the Waiver Wire show. There's still some good names in there, pickups that will probably still be free. So do check that one out. But until tomorrow night, Rush Nation, don't forget, as always, keep rushing.